So I had a dream the other day about this survival horror game called Clipping that uh it was like a really small section of the dream, but it really stuck out to me. I really remember it. And I've kind of been thinking about what was in it and the ideas that I took from in the dream. And that's kind of what I'm gonna be going over. I'm going to go over my quick pitch I made for this survival horror game called Clipping, right? So this would be our main character right here, the bunny. I didn't take too much effort with the design. I just needed something easy to draw, so I did that. Preferably it would be a bunny, cause but probably something a bit different from this. Okay, so what even is Clipping? So it would be a 30 survival horror game. It would have like puzzles and shit based on both item based and riddle or mechanism based, and preferably mixed media PS2 because I'm a nerd for that shit. Yeah. So what is the main gimmick of clipping? That is your limbs. Ignore the coloring on the image, by the way. I made this really quick. It would be the limbs that you lose, right? So each limb has like certain health, and once that fully depletes from like monsters and shit, it'll be like ripped off, right? And different actions will leave certain limbs more vulnerable. Like if you're aiming, your arm is more vulnerable, so it's probably gonna get chopped off. Or like if you're on the ground knocked over, your legs, they're gonna kind of be targeted a little bit more. And so when a limb is lost, you'll start like bleeding out, and overall health will be depleted at like a linear rate, or well, yeah, like more of them would make it go more, right? Not exponential though, quadratic perhaps. I don't know, but so you'll be bleeding and shit, so you gotta stop it either with certain healing items or with objects you grab around, like a chair leg. And main idea is that you are like this amalgamate monster of different parts that are replacing each of your like body, right? So there, and then so here's the health items that you would have. You tissues, which you just cram into the hole made in your body from the limb, and bleeding will temporarily be stopped, but obviously the tissue is going to get like destroyed, and after a certain amount of time it'll go away. That's only like a temporary, like if you're like in a real pinch, right? And then it'll just have like med kits. There'll probably be different tiers of them and how much they heal, but it doesn't stop bleeding. It'll just recover your health. So that's it. And then there would be bandages that permanently stops bleeding, but you won't be able to replace limbs with objects. Now, why does that matter? Why would that matter? Well, if it's fully blocked up by a bandage, that limb loses its functions, right? Like, let's say you have a ruler or something and you put it on your arm. Now that ruler will take on the function of your arm and it can like do whatever your arm would do. But if you just bandage it all up, you're not going to be able to put another object there. And so the functionality for that limb is just going to be gone until you get to a save point and you can get the operation done to restore all your limbs back. But obviously these can only be used once each, or else you can just it'll be too freaking overpowered. So anyways, and then the weapons, you just have a standard pistol. You'll need at least one functional hand to wield it. A shotgun, it'll do more damage. You'll need two hands, and then maybe something to spice it up, like a tranquilizer or something that just puts them to sleep temporarily, but they'll eventually get back up. You know, just like if there's a big ass dude, right, and you're like, I can't fight this guy right now. You'll just tranquilize him. Boom. Only not much ammo. Well, maybe big ones can take like two. Like depending on the size, they take more. Anyways, but the things like chair legs and shit that you get from like your environment, you can throw them, but they will break. And speaking of environment, that's another big part, is that in each room, all the stuff in it, there's something you can do with each of it. Like for example, a chair, you can rip it up. You can rip out the chair leg for a weapon or limb, or you could like kick it into an enemy and destroy the entire chair and lose out on some chair legs, but you do some big damage to them, right? Or you can have a bed where you crawl under it, or you like climb over it. You know, for movement, certain items will have like movement stuff like that, or they'll have like practical use stuff like chairs. So, anyways, here are some of the monster ideas. I don't have like a bunch of ideas. These are just like some quick ones. So you got the basic bunny zombie, right? They'll just deplete health. They'll just bite you, and if your limb is cooked, it'll rip it off. It'll rip it off. Then you get the big bruisers. The big bruisers will have these big mouths, and whichever one's open, that's the one you have to hit. That's the weak point, right? If you hit the one that's closed, because it has one on the front and back. I should have mentioned that. It has one on the front and the back, and whichever one's, that's the one you gotta hit. So then that's where the movement comes in, right? Like there was a one I had for a chair where if you were next to one, you could like dash around it or something. I don't know fully, but like you could do a quick move around it. And since they charge at you, you could like bait it, move it around, and then kick the chair into it from behind, like a freaking stylish boss. If like the behind mouth is open. If it charges at you with the open mouth, it'll bite you. But if it charges at you from the side with the closed mouth, you'll get knocked over to the ground. Right, and then you got the big evil ass worm. Right, it'll float and it'll chase you through the rooms. And then this is where like going under a bed or like movement based environmental items will become more useful to like evade him and whatever. And if he bites you, you're cooked. See, that limb, no matter the health, is gone. It's getting ripped off by this thing, right? You know, this one actually comes from the dream. This guy made the whole dream, because yeah. Anyways, so in the ground knocked over state, when you get knocked over or you're vaulting over a bed, you'll be in this like laying down state where all you can do is like kick until you get back up in the knocking over state, or like in the bed you'll vault, get in here, and then you'll like do another movement to get over the bed. But you can stay in this if you want to. This is another thing pulled from the dream. I don't know why, if you would want to be in that state. Maybe that's stupid actually, but whatever. But the kick does no damage, but it will like push them back slightly. So like if you are pushed down, you can maybe recover. But like say you're pushed down, and then one of the big bruisers, right, charges into you, you're kind of cooked. There's not much you can do about that. Anyways, so the resource managing of the game is deciding whether to use items as limbs or attacks, when to use healing items or blood loss blocking items, when to use aspects of your environment because sometimes they'll break when you do it, when to use your gun, like, you know, if you're like all your limbs are like super decimated, you're like barely holding on, maybe you should rely a bit more on your gun in that situation. And when to use surgeries, like let's say you get to a save point, you only have one limb gone, right? It'd be a waste to use up the surgery. Maybe come back when you're like more of a hybrid, more of a monster, you know what I'm saying? And that's pretty much all that I have right now. That's my pitch. I hope you like it. And if something out there exists that is similar to it, that would be freaking awesome sauce. But then, yeah, that's it. So bye bye. Thank you for listening to me.